In small towns and mid-sized cities across Mexico, most people find work the same way. Someone posts a job listing on Facebook. Maybe it's a local employment group. Maybe it's on a community page. Receptionist needed. Shop clerk wanted. Weekend errands. Good pay, no experience required. You send a message, and you get a response within hours. They suggest meeting at a cafe, a hotel lobby, and somewhere public. And because it's public, because there will be other people around, and because the listing looks normal, you go. In the spring of 2022, at least 7 women in Mexico followed that same script. They answered Facebook job listings. They met someone in public. They took one small step closer to a second location, a private space, somewhere where eyes and ears dropped away. And they would never come home. The man behind those listings had been operating for nearly a decade. Multiple names, multiple profiles, and it was always the same method. And by the time authorities connected the cases, and by the time they would make the arrest, most of those women were already dead. Evelyn Ramirez was 22 years old, an 8th semester industrial engineering student, studying at a college about 2 hours south of Mexico City. She was about to graduate, and she was looking ahead to her future. And just like a lot of students trying to cover expenses while finishing school, she needed part-time work. On March 22nd, 2022, Evelyn posted in the Facebook job group, "I'm looking for work, only on weekends, Saturday and Sunday." 4 days later, someone responded. The profile looked legitimate, with photos, friends, and activity. The job offer was straightforward. Weekend work, decent pay, flexible hours. It was exactly what Evelyn was looking for. They would arrange to meet on March 24th at Italian Coffee, a cafe in the center of a busy public plaza. Evelyn told her family where she was going. She would send messages to her father and her boyfriend that morning. And around mid-morning, she left her house for that interview. And that would be the last time anyone heard from her. Surveillance cameras at Italian Coffee captured Evelyn's arrival in the early afternoon. She was seen talking with a man. They sat at a table, they talked for a while, and from the outside, it looks exactly what it's supposed to be, a job interview in a public place. And then they leave together, and according to witness accounts, they board a taxi. The destination is about 600 meters away. The story was that Evelyn would be working at a small business, helping with appointments and customer service, for about 1,500 pesos a week, roughly $76 USD. She got into the taxi thinking she was going to go see her new workplace, and she didn't know she was being driven to the place where she would die. 2 days later, on March 26, workers at a plant nursery made a call to authorities. They had found something on the edge of their property. Black plastic bags. They were heavy and abandoned in an empty lot. And inside of those bags was Evelyn's body, dismembered. The injuries were so severe, the identification required documents found near the scene and DNA testing to confirm. The Morelos State Prosecutor's Office opened a femicide investigation immediately, but they were starting from almost scratch. The job listing had already been deleted or edited, and it was a Facebook profile that could disappear within just a few clicks. It was a suspect who knew exactly how to stay ahead of the search. Meanwhile, in the coastal town of Veracruz, another woman was scrolling through Facebook looking for work. She was 31 years old, and she would receive a Facebook Messenger message from an account registered under the name Mary Madison. The message itself was professional. It was direct. Also, receptionist position available, 90 pesos per week, about $4.50 USD, with the duties of answering phones and making appointments. Once again, they arranged a meeting. They would meet, and she would go missing. And just 3 days later, the authorities would recover her body. Again, the condition was so severe, the identification came through an ID card found near the scene and DNA testing. And the method would repeat across cases. Facebook job listings targeting young women, profiles that look legitimate, photos, friends, activities. It was created specifically for recruiting these victims. They would meet in busy public locations. They would request to move somewhere more private after the initial meeting. And once the victim agreed to go to that second location, their communication with their family completely stopped. The investigation itself would expand extremely fast. Authorities reached out to these places for any type of lead they can get. And eventually, activists started digging into the past. They found an article from 2013 from Veracruz newspaper. The article described the arrest of a man named Greg Villalobos. At that time, was 28 years old, who had been arrested back in 2012 for contacting young women with fake job offers, locking them in an office, and essaying them. The article itself listed several aliases, and it would be the same aliases prosecutors were now using in 2022. This wasn't a new predator. This was someone who had been doing this for a decade. And finally, on June 1st, 2022, authorities detained him without incident. He was traveling with a female companion who was also arrested. And according to investigators, he operated with at least 20 different Facebook profiles that contact potential victims. He would use profiles with names designed to appear legitimate, some even posing as women recruiters, others as business owners. And each profile had photos, friends, and interest, and even posts. Everything designed to look real, but each one was a trap. As of June 2024, the primary suspect remains in pre-trial detention, facing femicide and related charges, but proceedings are still ongoing. In the spring of 2022, at least 7 women in Mexico answered Facebook job listings that seemed legitimate. They met someone in public, they took one small step closer, and most of them never came home. The primary suspect is finally in custody, but the cases are still moving through the courts, and the families are still waiting, some for trials, some for remains that haven't even been found. And still, across Mexico right now, thousands of people are scrolling through Facebook job groups, looking for work that would help them pay rent, finish school, and support their families. Luckily, most of those listings are real, but still, some could be traps. And the thing is, platforms like this helps us connect. They help us find work and build communities. They also magnify harm when someone learns how to exploit them. And unfortunately, in 2022, that harm had a face, multiple names, multiple profiles, and a method that worked for 10 years before anyone stopped it. Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua. The border city across from El Paso, where freight trains and buses set the rhythm of a day. A place of neon bars and desert wind. Late 1995, downtown. A trash can on a busy sidewalk. Vendors packing up, buses braking hard. Shoe shiners stacking stools. Someone lifts the lid and pulls out an envelope tied with a string. Inside, 10 sheets of paper, pencil, careful block letters, a title of sorts. Then pages read like a confession, kidnappings, assaults, 15 murders described step by step. Crude drawings in the margins. At the bottom, a signature that wasn't quite a name. Richie. Police took the bundle and tried to match words on the page to bodies in the field. That year, recoveries have been made in Latte Bravo, where the wind doesn't stop and the ground turns to dust under your shoes. Some details overlapped, many didn't. The paper named no streets, no license plates, and no dates that could log to a report. There were no fingerprints, no hair caught in the fibers, just pencil marks and a pseudonym. Still, the diary fit a shape of a city already in crisis. Throughout the early and mid-1990s, young women had gone missing on their way to work, to school, to the bus stops on September 16th. Their families handed out flyers, and reporters filed stories that blurred together the same description, same trajectory, and same outcome. And in that atmosphere, 10 sheets pulled from a trash can felt like either a map or bait. Then came a second text, 1997. A single page, short, threatening, read in clumsy Spanish, again signed Richie. It mentioned a birthday, a place to meet, and two girls, 13 and 14. It threatened what would happen if the addressee talked. When analysts put the new note beside the 1995 pages, the handwriting didn't match. The voice didn't match. If the first bundle was a diary, this one read like a plant, an attempt to point an investigation in a direction chosen by someone else. Names were floated. One suspect in the area, Abdul Latif Sharif, was accused publicly of being behind the killings, then denied the diary outright, told authorities they were chasing the wrong man. Another name, whispered and printed in later reporting, Alejandro Menes, a figure tied in rumor to protected circles, the ghost of a suspect who was talked about more than he ever was brought into a courtroom. The truth is simpler and harder. Neither man was proven to be Richie, and the pages themselves were never authenticated beyond the story of where they were found. Investigators tried to figure it out anyway. Did any detail in the text match a recovery in Lade Bravo? Did any drawing echo a scene a detective had seen and not released to the press? If you take a step back, the larger picture is unavoidable. Juarez, in the 1990s, was a city under overlapping pressures, rapid growth, cross-border economies, police units stretched thin, corruption allegations that never quite resolved. And in that landscape, a diary could become a legend faster than a file could become a prosecution. So what exactly do we know? A bundle of pages was found in late 1995. It turned over to authorities. The text claimed responsibility for multiple murders. It carried the signature, Richie. Richie never became a person you could arrest. The diary itself never became evidence that could stand on its own. And what's left is a city that had to live with both the pages and the losses. On Sunday, May 11th, 2025, the first balloon festival opened as part of the Enrique Estrada Fair in Zacatecas. Crews were on the launch field before sunrise, rolling out wicker baskets and envelopes across a grid of tarps. Portable fans came on first to cold inflate the fabric. Burners were tested in brief spurts. Short, controlled flames meant to check the igniter, the pilot's light, and the main valves. Spectators gathered along temporary barriers to watch the routine that turns nylon and air into flight. By 7:45 a.m., several balloons were in different stages of preparation. On one stand, the ground crewman on the ground line steadied an envelope as it rose from its side. The pilot called for heat. The burner roared. The envelope rounded out and began to stand upright. The basket held 3 people, and from a distance, it looked like a textbook takeoff sequence. But at roughly 8 a.m., something changed. Cell phone videos from the crowd shows flame where it shouldn't be. It was near the skirt of the envelope and the basket rim, and was followed by a fast spread of fire up to the lower panels. Shouts went up. Someone yelled to shut the burner. Ground crew ran up with extinguishers. As the fabric took flame, the balloon still generated lift. The basket rose a few feet, and then a few more. 2 occupants managed to get clear in the first seconds of the emergency. Their exits were visible in the witness footage. They scrambled over the gunnel. They dropped to the grass. helpers pulling them back. A third man, identified by officials as the operator, remained engaged with the aircraft. In the confusion, he became entangled with a line between the balloon. Whether it was a tether, a drop line, or the crown line that pulled down toward the basket, the effect was the same. As the envelope lifted, it carried him with it. The video captures the sequence in stark detail. The envelope, now burning more heavily, climbs just above tree height. The line goes taut, and for a few seconds, the man dangles below the basket, gripping the rope as heat and smoke rose around him. And then, the line shifts, and the man falls. Bystanders rush toward where he lands. First responders, already en route, arrive within minutes. Fire crews focus on two tasks at once: suppress the remaining flames on the fabric and hardware, and clear a path for medics to reach the injured. Paramedics treated 2 people for burns, consistent with brief exposure to flame at close range. But unfortunately, the man who fell was pronounced dead from his injuries. By mid-morning, the Zacatecas Security General confirmed the fatality and announced the state prosecutor's office would open an investigation. Organizers stated the balloon was privately operated and had previously passed safety checks. The festival continued that afternoon, subdued. Several balloon operators voluntarily grounded their aircraft until investigators could examine the wreckage and issue a preliminary finding. And visitors who had traveled from across central Mexico walked past empty launch sites. The morning's tragedy casted a shadow over what was meant to be a celebration of flight. In the days that followed, investigators worked toward conclusions about equipment failure, pilot error, or procedural oversight. But for those who witnessed the accident, spectators with cell phones, ground crews with extinguishers, and children who came to watch color lift into a clear sky, the lesson was imminent and stark. And the festival, planned as annual tradition, postponed indefinitely. In late 2023, a 9-second TikTok clip began circulating that showed a man dancing in a clown costume while carrying a box with the outline of a human body inside. At first glance, it looked like a Halloween gag. The camera framed it tightly. Music played. The performer waved to the crowd. The clip spread quickly because the illusion was convincing, and for a portion of viewers, it was just a dark joke. But for many others, especially in Mexico, the image landed differently. The costume did not read as a simple carnival prop. It echoed something very real. On October 18th through the 19th, 2013, Francisco Rafael Arellano Felix, the eldest brother of the Tijuana cartel leadership, was shot and killed during a family event in Cabo San Lucas. Witnesses and officials say the gunman was disguised in a clown costume and fled after the attack. The details verified across multiple outlets and became the defining feature of the case, and the killer's identity was never publicly confirmed. In the years that followed, the clown disguise became a reference point in Mexican crime reporting and public memory. Professional clown associates condemned the murder and stressed that the costume had been a cover chosen by a gunman and not a reflection of their trade. Online, a second thread took shape. Criminal groups in Mexico, like armed groups elsewhere, have occasionally used masks and props in intimidation videos. A rotating visual language designed to shock and to brand their message, and to also hide their identities. And clown masks are very present in that mix, alongside skull bandanas, balaclavas, and other disguises. Most viewers never see these clips directly, but headlines and summaries are enough to plant the association. A costume can be more than just a costume. And this was the context TikTok walked into Those 9 seconds are built to feel a certain way: tight framing, steady bounce, a turn and reveal on the right beat. Its vibe is very deliberate, playful on the surface, but just unsettling enough to garner some type of attention. And what shook people wasn't just the prop itself, it was the feeling that it aimed for, landing on an audience that remembers a real murder carried out in a clown disguise, and years of mask intimidation videos. Nine years after the 1993 Santa Fe accident, another Mexican kindergarten became the site of a tragedy. This time, the cause was not mechanical failure. It was an intentional act. Ecatepec was home to thousands of working families. On a weekday morning in May 2002, children and teachers gathered outside their preschool for a daily flag ceremony, an ordinary ritual of songs, pledges, and routine. Parents knew these ceremonies as moments of pride. Schools treated them as a way to build community. That morning, a 56-year-old local mechanic named Jose Luis Nieto confronted adults near the ceremony. He had complained that the gathering blocked access to his house and said his frustration has been building for months. Amateur videos captured part of the argument. It also captured what happened next. Nieto walked to his pickup truck, started the engine, and drove into the crowd of toddlers and teachers. 2 young children, just 2 and 3 years old, were killed. Around 20 other children and several adults were injured. Emergency responders took victims to nearby hospitals. Families who had sent their children to school for a routine ceremony found themselves at emergency rooms, police stations, and for some, funeral homes. Unlike the Santa Fe crash, there was no mystery about the cause. There was no failed brake system, no chain of bad luck. This was a deliberate attack. Demanding answers that mechanical reports could not supply. How does someone decide to aim a vehicle at a group of children? And what turns a neighborhood dispute to violence against the most vulnerable? Nieto was detained and confessed to the attack. He told authorities he intended to retaliate against a teacher he believed had wronged him. But of course, his explanation did not justify the targeting of innocent children. On September 19, 2017, a magnitude 7.1 earthquake struck central Mexico through just 1 p.m. local time. In southern Mexico City, part of a private elementary and middle school collapsed, turning classrooms into rubble within seconds. Early reports put a toll at 21 children and 4 adults. The final count settled at 26 people, 19 children, 7 adults, making the school one of the most painful symbols of that day. Parents, neighbors, soldiers, and rescue teams converged on the site. Lines formed to pass buckets of debris by hand. Repeated calls for silence cut through the chaos as rescuers listened for voices. And news cameras captured moments where children were pulled alive from cavities in the wreckage. Brief flashes of hope amid dust and sirens. And very quickly, the question changed from what happened to why this building even failed. Engineers examining the remains pointed to added weight extra floors and construction that accumulated over the years, with not enough steel reinforcement in the columns. And under the lateral forces of the quake, Those weak vertical members cannot carry the load, and the structure pancaked. And accountability moved from the rubble to the courts. Monica Garcia Villegas, known as the media as Miss Moni, was arrested in 2019 after months on the run. In 2020, a Mexico City judge convicted her of manslaughter for the 26 deaths and sentenced her to 31 years in prison. And the images and footage that remain are not just of the collapse, but the response of neighbors forming human chains, firefighters and Marines coordinating searches, medics kneeling in dust, and parents waiting with photographs.